Change is constant, and we cannot wait for it. We have to meet it head on, and Gary Szenderski has the tools to help. As an internationally acclaimed expert on branding, his work takes him to companies around the world that must constantly change in order to move forward. And with his book, Now and Zen, he shows us how we can rebrand ourselves to keep up with a fast-paced world while overcoming limiting thoughts that hold us back. As always, a very special thanks to my patrons who make this podcast possible. If you enjoy listening, please subscribe and visit my website, barrykibrick.com, to become a patron or just to get in touch with me. I appreciate hearing from you and will always answer all your emails. Now, a chance to explore ourselves and be ready for the future. It is such a pleasure, Gary, to have you back on my show. We've been together before with your book of Zen and your book, The Zen Zone, but now we're here with your latest edition called Now and Zen, and this one does take a different path. This one reminds me more of what I would call a call to action, where the others were very philosophical and very psychological and emotional. This has all of those elements, but there's also a call to action because you start the book off just with these words: change isn't the obstacle to success, it's the path to it. You want everyone to realize that the biggest obstacle to success lies in their own head.
Barry, as always, you hit it right on the head. I'm so happy to be here again talking with you. And I think you're right. You know, this last book is, I don't know if I'm getting any better or I'm liking myself better or whatever. But actually, as I look at it sometimes, and I'll read a story that I wrote maybe a few years ago that ended up in the book, and think, God, this guy is a real hack. You know, how could he write a book? And then sometimes I think, this is really great. I should take my own advice. So it's that kind of mix, and I hope people like it because it was fun to write, and change, as you know, is part of my whole life. I mean, I work with companies going through change all the time, and I think on the other end, if you can get a positive outcome, you're good to go.
Well, like you said, though, and that is what's interesting. When you embraced it yourself, you realize how difficult change really is. So you're not only advising, but you're giving yourself your own wisdom a little bit. That's what's kind of fun to follow along. It's as you're challenging yourself to grow, you're sharing it with your readers. And I think that's it's a way that involves us on a different level.
You know, thanks for noting that. I think it's interesting to me because if I do look at something, I see it as a reminder that I've gone through it before. And I think leading by example, you know, if you can't change yourself or come out with a positive outcome for something or make a positive impact, then how can you really write about it and hope that other people will do it? And so often I'll look and say, how did they get through that mess that last time? What was I thinking? And often it's the answers are found in the words that I wrote at the time. Because as you know, the way this is put together, it takes some time to put all these stories together.
Well, and there's a common theme you say, and that is the belief that we all have the power to create the life we desire. And that's what you're drawing out of us is the not only the awareness, but how do you do that? How do you create that life? And you admit it is easier to write than it is to do. It is easier to say than it is to implement. And you don't necessarily even have the answers, but you provide various paths that one could take to get there, to that point at least where they feel they're doing the best that they can be.
Right. And I think it takes two things to get to that best that you can be part. And one is to know what, you know, at least to have an idea what it might be like, where you want to be, what's it going to be like when you grow up. that's one thing, is having a direction. The other thing is the belief that you can achieve it. And that's the obstacle that gets inside the head often, is that we want to believe it, and then so many things get piled on top of our belief systems that we start to doubt ourselves. And then the next thing you know, you don't even try. And that initiative that was so important at the beginning of the year when you made your resolution, by February it's a memory long gone. And I think that's because if we really believed it, we would have done it anyway. There's no magic to the first of the year. So when you make a resolution, this is kind of timely right now because I'm probably the heaviest I've been all year, for example. Oh. Well, it's only a few weeks into it. I know I've got no place to go but better, go up. So it's sometimes, it's the belief that you can actually get there, and then you find ways to get there. But you got to believe it first.
Well, you say, in fact, I want to correct everything, because when I say Zen, your Zen is spelled S-Z-E-N, and we know the correct spelling of the word Zen is Z-E-N. And what makes your S-Z-E-N different, and this is how you put it, you say Zen is of the moment. Zen with the S-Z-N, as in Zen and now, or now and Zen, celebrates what could be. And just as you said with a resolution, we all know what could be. I put on the COVID, God knows how many, actually. I don't even want to go there. But I haven't even made a resolution to get it off yet. I'm not ready. But the point is, as you said, to embrace the change, you believe that it's our hearts that tell us something is amiss with the now. And Zen is the now. And you're saying if something's amiss with that, we feel it in our heart and we want to change it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, Zen, I love the practice of Zen, or just the philosophy of it, where, if you were looking at and it's in the book too, a room, if you had a room that had nothing in it, most of us would say it's an empty room. But in Zen, they would say it's a room full of space. And I've taken that like another step, I think, is that it's always possible. There's always space. There's always room to grow. We can do it. And it's amazing what we can do just by listening to that inner voice inside of us. If it tells us that something's wrong, there's a really good chance that it is. And it's like a scratch, like an itch you can't get to, and you got to find it. And you gotta get there, and then put yourself in a position where you can win. And we know this, Barry, that if you don't get up to the plate, you're never going to hit the ball, And so you got to get ready. And all the stuff it's in the book is like just different ways to talk to yourself to say, I'm really can make this happen. And you do it through storytelling, because stories are, they're easy to remember. They break through, and it helps you talk to someone in an authentic way. So I love these little stories. They're not that long that, I think you get tired of reading it, but they're short enough because my attention span is pretty short. So I figure your attention span is going to be as short as mine, if not shorter. And so I try to keep it as short and sweet. So anybody that picks this book up, any page you look at, you can read it in like a minute.
Well, I'm really into, as you could imagine by the name of my shows and what I do, I'm into that between space, so to speak. And you have since you just mentioned space, you even say these words: the shortest distance between you and happiness is the space between an open and a closed door. And that space is always and never a void. That's why that Zen saying is so true. It is a space that is always filled with something, either a field, a force, some form of energy. I even do this joke about, how they always say an optimist sees the glass as half full and a pessimist sees the glass as half empty. I always say, listen, you know what a realist does? A realist sees the glass as always full, just sometimes with space or air or oxygen, sometimes with water. So in a certain sense, the glass is always full. You just have to be able to realize what's in that space in order to fill it to the best of your ability to achieve the highest potential you have.
That's an excellent point. And I think sometimes the glass is more than half full. I get two glasses just to cover it, you know. Uh, and I think that's one of the things that I've been afflicted with and blessed with at the same time is a real positive attitude. So that thread is always in my thinking and in my writing. And it's in the work I do too. If I have a piece of a business that I've got to get done or a project, I always see it in the best possible light, and I move towards that light because I also believe that when we put our mind to something, we can visualize it. It actually starts to move toward us. So it's just like if you want to learn a language, if you don't start practicing the words, you're never going to get there. Or if you want to, whatever it is you want to accomplish, start to be that because image is destiny. Whatever you project, you'll actually grow into. And the book is a lot of that in there. It's not just the book too. It's like the stories that got into the book had a whole history of things that happened to me. This is how I got all my information to write it. Is sometimes I would find myself in what I thought was a losing situation, and I would have to get some help to say, okay, no, you are in a win-win situation here. Let me point it out to you. And even sometimes if we're in the right track, we don't always see it ourselves. And you need someone on the outside, a friend or a family member, sometimes a consultant or a business or a game plan or a self-help book to say, you actually do have the right answers. And that helps you believe in yourself. The confidence helps you see what you want to see. And then you get the energy start to going. And once that happens, you're pretty much on your way.
Gary, there's another thing you really want us to be aware of, and that is we are not our resume. Where we are does not define who we are. That is one of the most important things we must realize, because without doing that, we could get so lost in the muck and mire of our past, we will never be able to hold on to what really is available to us in the future unless we let go of that thought that we are not defined by our past. Now, our past influences us. We don't want to forget the past or ignore the past. We just don't want to be defined by it.
That's exactly right. Sometimes we find ourselves in a position that maybe not by our own doing, we ended up having a job or something's going on in our life that we just don't like. And if we just judge ourselves or let anybody judge us by that condition, because it's just really a condition on a path, something else, if we're judged by that moment in time, we're not judged by the whole person. And the person can transcend all the moments. And so it just happens to be one spot in time. And if you look at it that way, the way I see it, and you just said it, is that there's always something around the corner that could actually turn you around, get you in a better space, and start to move.
Gary, the one thing you do to always keep ourselves focused is you have a weekly email that you send to people. And I know it's for free, and I always read it. Would you mind giving out your email address if somebody would like to subscribe and just get your weekly positive outlooks?
Sure. Just drop me a line at Gary S, GARYS at Szen, S as in Sam, Z as in zebra, EN.US. And I'll be happy to get you on the list. And incidentally, writing these stories every week ends up in a book at some point too. So that's always fresh. There's always something new. And sometimes I'll run an old story, but I love to get more readers and I love the responses too. So feel free to join in and I'll get you on the list.
Say it one more time, the address too, Gary?
It's Gary S, GARYS at Szen, SZEN.US.
Perfect. Now, one of the things you say that is, I thought this was a refreshing way of looking at things. And these are your words. It's not that when we see it, we believe it, but rather when we believe it, we will see it. That is a beautiful way to add all of that positive energy you want, because And it's not sitting there saying, you're never one of those people that sit there and say, just by doing that, it will manifest itself. Nobody believes that. We all know it all requires hard work. It all requires diligence. But if you want to be able to see it, sometimes you do have to believe it beforehand. And then it, like you said, it then opens up the pathway for it to flow into you. It's sort of like a pull-push kind of method, but in this case, you can pull it in rather than push it forward.
Yeah, I'm glad you caught that. I love that too. It's the idea that we see it first and then it happens is not this my own thinking. A lot of people think the same way, and the reason that's so important is once you accept it, it becomes part of your belief system that you discard all the things that will keep you from not getting there. So it's like a built-in mechanism that kind of helps us put on the blinders and stay focused for what we want. It's also makes us an authentic view of ourselves because when you see it, it's what you believe, and no one can change that. You just think about what's going on in the bipolarization of the world today. There's factions that have belief systems, pro and con, you name a subject, and you can't shake those folks. And in marketing, that's what I do for a living, pretty much. You have a belief system, you can't shake people off of it. They will follow their own beliefs, and that is their truth. So to what you said earlier, when you see it first, when you believe it first, it becomes part of your belief system. Then it becomes innate in everything that you do. And that can translate to really making a lot of progress on anything you want to accomplish.
But one of the things you just described is sort of a problem when we're in those silos of belief and we're not seeing each other. And in the book, in fact, you use a term saying that you're not looking for the new normal, you're looking for the new middle. And it is always in the middle, I find, that the answers lie. They're never at the extremes. They're always in the middle. When you take the extremes and you milk out the juice from each one of them, there's an answer in the middle. But right now, the problem is we're not doing that. And we need to do that more. We need to search for the middle, or that, again, if you want to go back to that Zen theory, that space between those two belief systems.
Well, it seems to me, and maybe I'm the only person that sees this, but for many years, especially in politics or anything, we can have belief systems and believe things, and that's great. But I think we've lost the other side of it, which is the balance that we need, and that is the open mind. We used to have really healthy discussions and debates about whether this was right or this was wrong, but you were at least open to some information. I think today I see a lot of folks that go down a rabbit hole of information or misinformation, depending on how you look at it, the what side of the camp you're in, and they don't want to know what's good or not good. They don't want to accept anybody else's belief. It becomes the only one. I think there's a danger in that, and that we are always good to be a little bit healthier about it and say, okay, maybe I should try to learn. Maybe I'll test my own belief system, and that way you start to grow. Otherwise, you become so myopic you can't see anything else except what you want to see, and then pretty much the blinders get on, and you actually diminish the quality of your life, in my view.
Well, you also have a word that goes along with that sentiment, not exactly so because you use it in a variety of ways, but you call it choicefulness. And I want you to explain that, because the choicefulness is, it's a response. We all can make the choice we want. And in a sense, it's knowing that, how do we say this? That everything turns out okay. I mean, it's not really that, but there's a choicefulness that we can use that we need to take advantage of, and we're sometimes not.
Yeah, I think the thing about choice, and this is also part of just a general trend. We have more things to choose from than ever before, and so that puts pressure on what we believe, and then it puts pressure on to ask our inner self what it is that we really want. Because with so many choices, It's not always a positive thing to have a choice to pick the thing you want. Remember, the other side of that is you're letting something else behind. I choose A, I leave B. And so there's a negative thing. And so when we have so many choices, it becomes sometimes stressful because there's just so much to observe, so many things to look at and analyze that you can't make a choice. And I've heard more and more people lately say, I'm cutting down my choices to just a few things. And it's a lot easier. It's a lot less stress. Yeah, I might not get the best deal of all time. And yeah, maybe that job isn't the real one, the actual one that I thought I could have. But when it comes down to it, you have to, in order to grow, you got to keep making choices. It's incumbent on us as humans to do it, because if we don't, we get stagnant. And you can't really stop change anyway. It's you might just think you are, but you can't. And so choice is always part of the game. Every single day you got to make them. And what choicefulness means is that hopefully, and if you do it in a kind of a thoughtful way, you make the right choices and they build on what you believe.
The other thing you say, even when we're making these choices, and it's a key word, patience. You believe, and I do too, that patience is the one thing that allows the information to be absorbed. It allows everything to unfold, and it gives us time to react. Now, I have to really be careful with that, because I know personally I'm one of those people that react first and then figure out what I did wrong or right. It's
Right.
just the way I am. But the more I can develop patience, I won't even say the results are better, because sometimes reacting at the spur of the moment is the right thing to do. But you know what happens, though, when you do develop the patience is it gives you at least a sense of calmness. And when you have that sense of calmness, you're always in a better position to react properly.
Yeah, that's a great point, Barry. I think calmness is in a sense confidence. And I wrote a story many years ago called Confident, which is a combination of calmness and confidence. And I think you're right. Sometimes making the split decision, like you got to do it right now, you just feel it, you go for it, and it works like gangbusters. And sometimes it doesn't, because maybe you didn't see the whole field. Like, think about what a quarterback goes through. He's got a play in mind, and he has to wait for it to unfold. If he throws it too soon or too late, he's going to miss the target. So you have to take a breath and let that happen for you. Let the landscape fill in, so you kind of know where you can go with it. On the other hand, same analogy, the quarterback, if the guy is right there and you don't throw it, you're going to miss him forever. So you've got to be able to act really fast, but and also take some time when it's necessary to get the better decision. And that's just a function of practice, you know.
And to follow up on that same analogy, the quarterback can also change plans and call what they call an audible. So again, that patience, and in fact, one of the classic things that you see from the greats at that position is, rather than escaping the pocket, they move forward into the pocket. And that gives them, again, that more time to think, look, and see, even though they are reacting. This whole thing is taking place within a few split seconds. So it's very funny when patience comes in there. It can be patience that takes years, or it can be patience that take split seconds.
Yeah, and they're staying with the football analogy. The quarterbacks will say, "The game slowed down for me." It's like everything is in slow motion. You can see things that you couldn't see. Well, you can't do that the first time you get the ball as a kid. You got to learn. It takes years and years of practice to be able to see these things unfold. Same thing with life. We make a lot of decisions all the time. We have plays that we call for ourselves. And sometimes we get there and we got to do an audible. And that's all okay, because inside the compass that we're following, our filter that we have in place, is guiding us to where we really want to go, which is, in all my books and all my writing, always talks about what is it that you want to achieve.
And you say, we all, these are your words, we all need to sometimes recalibrate from time to time. We just want to minimize the time in Funkland so we can spend more time smiling. So everyone, even if you've got it down pat, you're still going to need to recalibrate because, like you said earlier, if change is constant, and that's the only constant we're aware of, then recalibration has to be constant because everything is changing.
That's exactly right. And I love the word recalibrate because it's not reinvent. It's just resetting. It's resetting the direction. Yes. So recalibration is a way to just remind ourselves that we're on the right path. It's not, we don't have to change because we get into an obstacle. It just means that we got to figure a way to get around it. And we got to think that it's still within us to get to that goal. And we don't have to change ourselves or change the world, but we do need to kind of like take a deep breath and make sure that we're on the right path still.
Well, you know what? You use the term lifting weights. And the way you spell weights is Waits, as in waiting. And I thought that was great because you say, in order to get into the game, you've got to lift those weights. You can't just keep waiting. You can't wait for the moment. You have to lift the weight, get into the game, and then the moment will come. So we sometimes find ourselves stuck in waiting for the right moment when really the right moment is getting into the game and then waiting. But so you have to lift that wait time, and you have to do it if you really want to move forward, or even if you want to, let's say you want to even stay stagnant, but you want to stay stagnant in a pleasant manner. You still have to lift that weight so you get back into the game.
Yeah, weight is one of those things that to me is kind of a passive way to just the way to think. And when you're passive, stuff can happen to you because you're not doing anything to get yourself to where you want to be. So the more you stand still, the bigger target you have for, bad things to happen or things that will hold you back. And so by eliminating the weight, by taking a move towards it, as you and I have talked before off the show, there's things in our life, in our careers and jobs, we change and we kind of like juggle out the possibilities. And then we go, okay, this is what we need to do. I love the fact that your show is back on the air. It's something that is a gift for all of us. I mean, I love these things, and I'm really honored to be on it, and it feels right for you, and it feels right for us, and it might not be that the thing you think you have to do or really want to do, but it suits you. You built it. It emanates all of you. I mean, when I think about between the lines and getting into the details, I think of you. I think of Barry because, you bring it out and that's really where all the gold dust is that stuff that's in between. And when you've got a great way of getting there, it just comes out as if this guy's got a magic wand in his kit. He can make things happen. And I believe that. I know that's why we became friends. And a lot of that is in my book, but it's true that when we follow our own heart and what calls to us, we're probably going to be right 99% of the time.
By the way, I want to thank you not only for those kind words, but also for the fact that I am in your book. And I was reading it and I went, oh my God, I'm in it. I don't know why I always find that thrilling, but I do. So thank you, my friend. But still, I am still looking for more growth. I know that sounds funny. It seems like the quote narrative I've got and doing is working, and I enjoy that, but I'm still not completely satisfied. I feel that there is still more that I can push, and I'm looking to do that. You've been a help in that in a number of ways. As you even say, it's because of your expertise in branding, you say we are our own brand. And if you build it, they'll come. But if you brand it, they will come back. And I feel that I built the brand, but not as strong as I want. And I want to build a stronger brand. And therefore, I am using even outside sources to help me, some of them, which, of course, you've so kindly turned me on to. And it's definitely working. So we're never... I think I want to say like to separate satisfied from content. I think I'm going to just make that up, even if they mean the exact same thing. It's good to be content, but that doesn't mean you have to be satisfied. Or if you want to use it the other way around, it's good to be satisfied, but that doesn't mean you have to be content. Even though they're parallel words to a certain extent, there is still the ability to hold those two thoughts in yourself and know that, hey, I'm feeling good, but I want to still not necessarily do more, but almost be more.
Yeah, that's really good the way you said it. Be more is the point, I think. And it's not just the doing, because we can all do stuff. I mean, sometimes, and I want to go back to, you're not waiting either to be discovered. You just can't have a thought that I can do more or be more and then just wait for the phone to ring, because it's not going to happen. You have to go out there and beat the drum. And that's how we learn, and that's how we grow. And then actually we take, even with all this information that we can take in for what we want to be, we still might not get there. But if we're constantly moving, it will come. I guarantee you. There will be an aha moment in anyone's life that says, I can always be more, because in the process of trying to grow, you will actually get to that seed that'll blossom inside of you. And that's just the belief of the kind of people we are. And that's why you don't wait. That's why you can't wait. You've got to be actively looking to move your life ahead. And that's the best way to learn. And that's the best way to grow. And then after you do all that work and do all that experience, you get down to where it's just really simple. It's that da-da-da-da-da-da. This is very Kibrick, da-da-da-da-da-da, whatever that, you fill in that blank, and it becomes like not just like a slogan, but it becomes the banner, the cheering, the platform for growth is. And I always think, just like for me, my goal and everything I do is try to have a positive impact. And I often think I could have done more, but sometimes if I look hard enough, I will see something that was positive. So at least I'm making a little bit of progress.
But the thing that we have to avoid, and these again, your words, Gary, from the book Now and Zen, and that is the self-inflicted guilt that we put on ourselves. And you define it like this: self-inflicted guilt means we judge ourselves without a trial. And I cannot tell you how many by the way, great people. I'm not talking about, this only really happens to good people, because bad people don't really suffer from guilt. I know that sounds funny. They're bad. They don't care. It's good people that suffer from guilt and punishing themselves. And, especially if you just could judge yourself with a third eye, or the eye of a friend you mentioned before, maybe it's even a consultant or whatever you need, you just don't want to self-inflict that guilt if you can avoid it.
Right. I don't, the mea culpas, the my fault syndrome, is pretty pervasive for a lot of folks. They think they can control everything. Well, you can't. You can't. Change is constant. You can't control the outcomes of everything. So mistakes are going to happen. Bad things are going to come. And you may be something you could have done to avoid it, but that's how you learn. That's what I love about what Nelson Mandela says. I never lose. I either win or I learn. And so in that, if you follow life that way, everything that goes wrong is a blessing, because otherwise, how would you know to get around it the next time?
And sometimes what we all need is encouragement. And your exact words are, encouragement has no shelf life. Oftentimes, I'll never forget my dad, bless him, and he's done so much for me. I will be so forever grateful. But I do remember one of the things he was always afraid of was if he gave too much encouragement, he would swell our heads. And I'll never forget, as I got older, and I'd still see him even do that with his grandchildren. And I'd say, Gramps, Pops, there's no head that you could swell that won't knock itself down. So encouragement is always okay externally because we have enough internal guilt to keep that encouragement off the shelf. So give it when you can, because it never runs out of gas, except for the individual who themselves sometimes don't see it.
Yeah, sometimes, this is all tying together. I mean, there's a theme to this, is that who we are and what we want to be encourages us. It's self-encouragement. You get self-confidence, and you build self-esteem, and through self-discovery, you learn more about yourself. That's all great. But if somebody that you respect says, hey, that was really good, or you can do this, you start to believe it, that seed gets planted. That goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the power of belief. You can change the world. And if it could be an encouragement that a teacher gave you in the 4th grade that said, you can really play lacrosse. And you thought, well, I didn't even know what lacrosse was, but now if somebody said I could do it, I probably can. So you try. And that's just how it works. And the beauty of encouragement too is that you have it so much, you can always give it. There's always more. It's free to give. And it makes differences in lives all the time. In fact, it's the one thing I think makes the most difference, is you can get people to believe that they can do something. That's a positive.
But as you say, the bottom line is that it's about how we believe ourselves, how we talk to ourselves. That's going to still be the bottom line. And when I read those words, it made me think of something that I'd like to just get your take on it as well, because I don't even need to get your take, because I know you and I know this will be your take, but you can argue with me if I'm wrong. But the self-talk that you're talking about is not like that joke on Saturday Night Live with Stu Smiley, I'm good enough, I'm great enough. That's not what self-talk really is. Self-talk is got to really be that thing that you feel and hear in whatever you want to call it, your soul, your heart. It's deeper than just what's playing out in your mind. It has to come from a place that is deeper than just your thoughts, because your thoughts are oftentimes, and you mentioned this in the book, are oftentimes in the future, oftentimes in the past, very rarely in the present, which is also okay. That's how we live our lives. But how we talk about ourselves, how we really drill, we need to know that positive self-talk is more than just yapping in your head. It's got to be a feeling of deep emotion for it to be effective.
Yes, and tapping into that through whatever process you want to take, understanding who you really are, is an energy boost for anything you want to do from there. And self-discovery is the most transforming thing I think that can happen to anybody. And that means that there's an aha moment going on inside of your soul or your heart, whatever, that you follow, that says, okay, that just inspired a thought, that feeling. Sometimes we can't even say what we're trying to articulate. We just got a feeling about it. And at some point it becomes a more viable thought. And then, the next stage is you can actually put it into words, and then you start to visualize it. And pretty soon, all that original inkling has turned into something that is uncanny and unbelievable, and puts you on a path of greatness. And it's just because we were listening. We have to teach ourselves to listen and listen to your gut. If it feels a little bit weird, it probably is. There's something wrong. And if it feels like, hell yes, let's do it, it's probably really good.
Well, you say even take the hell yes approach to what the universe provides. It ensures lots of exciting times. So it's not just saying yes, it's saying hell yes. And another thing that goes hand in hand with that is so important is enthusiasm. And the one thing you make clear, and I want to really hit home, is that like many of the things, enthusiasm doesn't have to come first. You can have a job that you're not enthused about, but find out what makes you enthused about it, or what you can do to infuse enthusiasm. That's when you will get the most out of it, because you will A, enjoy it more, but B, you will be amazed at how many tangents can spring off of just enthusiasm versus just doing. Doing almost does nothing without enthusiasm.
Ralph Waldo Emerson said, without enthusiasm, nothing great ever happens. And I'll take it another step further. I teach at the University of California here in Irvine, and I know I do whiteboard presentations, not so much anymore because we're on the Zoom age, but I get excited about doing it. And I know for a fact, no one can read one thing on this board, but while I'm putting it up there, you feel it. And see, it's contagious. Enthusiasm it reflects right back to you. You give it to somebody, they get enthusiastic, it comes back to you and it just builds, and it's powerful. It's really powerful because it gives joy to the journey in everything you do. Because when it's a hell yes world, you have hell yes days.
And another bit of wisdom you give, and you tell a whole story before this, but I'm only going to give the tag on this, all right, Gary? You could fill in the whole story later or let people read the book, because it's a great story that gets to this point. But I want to just get to the point, and that is, oftentimes the reason why we can't exceed our grasp is because we can't let go of the past. And we have the ability to really reach far ahead, but we're holding ourselves back with one hand, which can't let go. So that's an interesting dynamic that, again, we're caught between, so to speak. And we have to find out what is that energy force between holding on and letting go.
Yeah, guilty as charged on that. I think you end up carrying a weight around with you sometimes if you can't let go. And that's just a function, too, I think, of just not wanting to change and liking where you are. But when you stop growing, you can't grow if you just keep holding on to everything, because pretty soon you just sink under the weight of it.
And you say that as well when the times, and I have experienced this, and I think this is what gives the great entrepreneurs and things like that the step above, and that is that when times that we really can't articulate what we're feeling and we're not feeling very good, and it's just right at that moment, if you don't give up, you can have that epiphany. And that happened from everyone from Ford to Jobs to Bill Gates to, I'm talking wealthy people, but it's also happened to the great scientists, to the great physicists, to the great artists. It's just at that moment, almost when you can't bear any more, that if you hold on just a little bit longer, boom, it can come. Now, at the same time, there are times when one needs to surrender. I've always found that balance hard to figure out. But the one thing I do know is that when I didn't think I should surrender and I did hold on, it did come out with that, as you said, aha moment, that even if it wasn't quite an epiphany, it was an awareness that was definitely worth the while.
Yeah, that kind of thinking just confirms that you're on the right path. I put all the ingredients into this cake, a little bit of MacArthur Park here, and it's got to come out a certain way. And you're waiting and you're looking in the oven and it looks a little flattened, but sometimes if you don't want to start over, you got to give it a little bit more time, use that patience, and it can come out just the way you want. But surrender is the other side of that. The positive side of it is letting go of something that just is not serving you well anymore. Maybe it served us before. Maybe it's a friendship that's gone south, and you hate to say, okay, I really don't have anything in common with this person anymore. What should I do? Well, it doesn't do anybody any good to just pretend that you're still have a lot in common and have these and make these conversations they're forced. It's just time maybe to say, okay, I'm going to go do this because we do have a limited amount of time. Let's spend it with somebody that I feel I can still learn from and enjoy being with. And so you got to let go too. You got to surrender to that.
Yeah, and that's, I find for me that was one of the, not with friends so much, because I've been blessed that I have a good acumen when it comes for picking people. That's just, I'm blessed with that. It's not a skill I've learned. It's nothing. My friends remain my friends almost 100% of the time. But when there is an exception, I'll get rid of it so fast, because you're right. Especially when it comes to friendship, you don't have time to waste with the precious time with someone that's not making you feel better about yourself. That's the key to all sorts of relationships. It's not so much how you feel even about the other person, it's how you feel about yourself when you're with that person. And if you start feeling crappy about yourself when you're with someone, you've got to snap that one fast. I don't even think patience is required for that, Gar. You really got to let that go.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And this is where, self-inflicted guilt comes in. You think, okay, maybe I'm doing something wrong. That's why I'm feeling bad. And sometimes maybe you are, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes you can't fix it either. So it's just recognizing that it's time to jettison and go on to something else can be, eye-opening and rewarding in and of itself.
Well, Gar, I want to let everybody know again, the book is Now and Zen, and Zen with an S-Z-E-N. Gar, give us your email one more time, because I really do want people to get and subscribe to your journal.
Thanks, Barry. It's Gary S, Garys, as in Sam, at Zen, SZEN.US.
Gar, I do want people to subscribe, but I want to end our conversation with your words from Now and Zen. Life is like taking a course on dealing with change. We study, but we're never totally ready. The point is that we never will be, because we too often wake up and forget the simplest premise. It's a new day. Gary, you always remind us it's a new day, and I thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and thoughts with me and my wonderful listeners.
Thank you very much, Barry. I really appreciate it.
Take care, my friend.
You too.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more, please subscribe or become a patron of the show at barrykibrick.com to keep it going every week. Thank you.